You've always pictured Austria as a place of snow-capped peaks, elegant music halls, and chocolate cakes served on porcelain. Now, with your plane ticket booked, it's becoming real. But as you begin to plan, something unexpected happens. Austria starts to surprise you. This isn't just a country of classical music and Schnitzel. It's a place where Alpine traditions meet urban sophistication, where sleepy mountain villages give way to cities bursting with art, history, and contemporary cool. You begin with the basics. First, Austria is not Australia, a distinction you didn't think needed explaining until you see t-shirts in souvenir shops making fun of the confusion. But the real surprise? How diverse Austria truly is, far beyond Vienna and Salzburg. You dig into the 9 federal states, each one with a distinct identity. You learn about Vorarlberg, tucked against the Swiss border, with its dramatic alpine landscapes and wooden chalets. Then there's Styria, often overlooked, but full of vineyards, thermal spas, castles, and Austria's second-largest city, Graz, a city that blends medieval charm with modern design. You hadn't even heard of Carinthia before, but now you can't stop thinking about its lakes, clear, blue, and inviting. You realize that the Austria you imagined barely scratches the surface. You decide, you'll go beyond the tourist trail. Yes, you'll see Vienna and its imperial palaces, but you'll also make room for mountain trails, hidden villages, and quiet lakeside strolls. Then comes the season. You picture Austria under a dusting of snow, Christmas markets glowing with candlelight, and the scent of spiced wine. Suddenly, winter moves to the top of your list. But you also imagine springtime hikes, summer lake swims, and autumn forests ablaze with color. You realize, Austria is a year-round destination, and each season tells a different story. You begin to map out your route. You dream of riding trains through the Alps, eating fresh bread in sleepy towns, hearing German spoken with that soft Austrian lilt. The thought is thrilling. Not just the landmarks, but the experience of being there. This isn't just a trip. This is your introduction to a place that lives and breathes through tradition, nature, and quiet elegance. You're not just going to Austria. You're going to uncover what most travelers miss, and that's where your story begins. You thought choosing when to visit Austria would be easy. But soon, you realize something important. Austria isn't just one destination. It's 4 seasons in motion, and each season tells a very different story. You begin with winter, because that's how Austria first appeared in your imagination. Snowflakes falling on Baroque rooftops, Christmas lights glowing in narrow streets, the scent of cinnamon and cloves in the air. You picture yourself sipping glue wine at a Christmas market in Vienna, or watching the snow fall silently on a mountaintop in Tyrol. If you love snow, skiing, or festive charm, late November to February might be perfect, but then you start dreaming in green. In spring, Austria begins to wake from its winter hush. Parks bloom in Vienna. Mountain trails open up in the Alps. The air is crisp, the city's less crowded, and the countryside feels fresh and full of possibility. March through May starts to sound ideal, especially if you like mild weather, lower prices, and space to breathe. And then there's summer, and it catches you by surprise. You always thought of Austria as a winter country, but it turns out Austrians love summer. The lakes become turquoise playgrounds. People hike, bike, picnic, and swim. Festivals fill every calendar. Salzburg's classical music scene peaks. Vienna's riverfront transforms into a beach bar paradise. Suddenly, July doesn't seem so crowded, it seems alive. But it's autumn that really captures your imagination. September and October bring golden forests, wine harvests, and fewer tourists. You imagine yourself wandering through a vineyard in the Wachau Valley, or crunching leaves underfoot in the Vienna woods. It's peaceful, affordable, and bathed in the warm light of the fading year. You realize there's no bad time to visit Austria, only different moods. Do you want cozy? Choose winter. Tranquility? Spring. Energy? Summer. Color and calm? Go in autumn. The key is knowing what kind of journey you want. You smile, thinking how no matter when you arrive, Austria will meet you with a different kind of beauty. And you'll be ready. Scarf in winter, sunglasses in summer, hiking boots in spring, or a wine glass in autumn. Because every season in Austria isn't just weather. It's an invitation. You've picked your season, started planning your route, but soon you realize that visiting Austria isn't just about where you go. It's also about how you behave once you're there, because Austrians have a distinct rhythm. Quieter, more reserved, and incredibly polite. The first thing you learn? Greetings matter. A simple grüß Gott or hello when you walk into a shop or restaurant makes a big difference. Austrians value formality and respect. A friendly nod. A danke when someone holds the door. Even bit when saying please. These small courtesies go a long way, especially outside the big cities, where tradition runs deep. You notice that things feel a little more measured here. No one's rushing. There's order in the streets. Public transportation runs on time. Trains glide into stations with clockwork precision. People wait patiently at crosswalks, even when there are no cars. You find it oddly comforting. Austrians aren't stiff. They're just quietly confident in how they move through the world. And then there's cleanliness. It's not just a point of pride. It's a shared responsibility. Parks are spotless. Streets feel polished. Even the air smells clean. You learn quickly not to litter and to keep noise levels low, especially on public transport. In Austria, respect for shared spaces is part of the culture. But it's not all rules and order. There's warmth here too, especially once you've earned it. Austrians may not start conversations easily, but they're happy to help if you ask. Once they warm up to you, you're treated like an old friend. Don't expect fake smiles or over-the-top hospitality. What you'll find is something quieter and more genuine. You also prepare yourself for directness. Austrians say what they mean. Not rudely, just honestly. You ask if a shop's open and they say, Nein, geschlossen. That's it. You learn to appreciate the clarity. And then there's the food culture. But that's another story. For now, you're adjusting to Austria's tone. Polite, peaceful, structured. It's not a place that demands your attention. It invites you to listen, to observe, and to become part of its graceful pace. And once you do, you're not just visiting Austria. You're syncing with it. You've mapped out where you want to go. Vienna, Salzburg, maybe a lakeside village. A hike in Tyrol, a detour to Graz. Now comes the question. How do you get from one to the other? Smoothly, affordably, and like a local. The good news? Austria's public transportation system is a dream. Clean, reliable, easy to navigate. You soon realize you don't need a car unless you're heading to remote Alpine villages or doing deep countryside exploration. Even then, trains get you surprisingly close. You start with the ÖBB, Austria's national railway. Their trains are fast, frequent, and efficient. You can ride in quiet, spacious cars with mountain views flashing past your window. Booking tickets online or via their app is easy. And if you book early, you'll find sparschini tickets, discounted fares that feel like a secret travel hack. For more flexibility, there's also the climate ticket, a pass offering unlimited travel on Austria's public transport network for a set price. If you plan to travel often within a week or more, this could be a game changer. In cities, you fall in love with trams and U-Bahns. Vienna's public transport, especially, is legendary. Trams glide silently through the streets. The metro is clean and safe. You can buy a 24, 48, or 72-hour pass for unlimited rides. And suddenly, the whole city becomes accessible. And don't forget about buses and regional trains. Even smaller towns are well connected. You could have breakfast in Salzburg and be wandering a lakeside village by lunch. You do learn one important tip: validate your ticket. If you're riding a train or tram with a paper ticket, stamp it in the machine before boarding. Fines are hefty, and playing the tourist card won't help. And then there's the joy of walking. Austrian cities are built for it. Old towns are compact, and every side street feels like a secret waiting to be discovered. You stroll through Vienna's cobbled alleys, Graz's medieval lanes, or Salzburg's riverside promenades, and you begin to see the best views don't always come from a seat. They come from wandering. By now, your confidence is growing. You're not just getting from A to B, you're learning how Austrians move, calmly, efficiently, and with just the right balance of precision and beauty. As your itinerary fills with towns and train routes, another layer begins to unfold. Where will you sleep? And in Austria, your choice of accommodation becomes part of the experience. You could stay in a modern hotel, of course, sleek, efficient, international. But you quickly learn that Austria has more to offer than just convenience. It offers charm, character, story. In Vienna, you find historic hotels tucked inside former palaces. Chandeliers, velvet drapes, high ceilings, echoes of the Habsburgs in every corner. Some buildings date back centuries, but feel modern on the inside. You realize that here, history and comfort coexist. Then there are the family-run pensions and guest houses, especially outside the big cities. These aren't just places to sleep. They're warm, welcoming spaces where the owner might serve you homemade jam with breakfast or share a hiking trail only locals know. They're often more affordable than big hotels and far more personal. In Alpine regions, you discover guesthouses, rustic inns with flower boxes hanging from wooden balconies, hearty meals served downstairs, and mountain views that don't need filters. You wake to cowbells in the distance and the scent of fresh bread wafting up from the kitchen. The pace here is slower, and that's the point. And then there's the wellness culture. Austria is known for its thermal spas and lakeside resorts. In places like Bad Gastein or Bad Ischl, you can soak in mineral-rich waters surrounded by mountains, a tradition that's been around for generations. You start to imagine a few days of relaxation between city adventures. It feels indulgent. It also feels smart. If you're on a tighter budget, hostels in Austria are clean, stylish, and often set in incredible locations. Even solo travelers will feel at home. And for longer stays, apartment rentals give you your own kitchen and space to live like a local. One thing becomes clear. In Austria, your accommodation is more than just a bed. It's a gateway into local life, a reflection of the region you're in, and sometimes a little slice of history. So, you stop thinking about where to sleep and start thinking about where you want to wake up. It doesn't take long to realize Austria knows how to eat and how to enjoy every bite. You came for the scenery and the culture, but now you're lingering at the table. Because here, meals aren't rushed. Food isn't just about flavor. It's about rhythm, tradition, and sometimes, silence. Austrians don't talk with their mouths full. They don't check their phones while dining. They simply eat and they savor. You start with the most iconic, Wiener Schnitzel, a golden, paper-thin veal or pork cutlet, crisp and light, served with potato salad or parsley potatoes. It's simple, but the kind of simple that only centuries of tradition can make perfect. Then there's Käsespätzle, the Alpine answer to mac and cheese. Warm, cheesy, topped with crispy onions, and best enjoyed after a mountain hike. Or Tafelspitz, a Viennese classic. Slow-boiled beef served in broth with root vegetables, horseradish, and applesauce. But what surprises you most? The sweets. Apfelstrudel, warm and flaky, filled with cinnamon apples and raisins. Sacre torte, that dense chocolate cake with a hint of apricot, best eaten in a chandelier-lit cafe in Vienna. You didn't think you had a sweet tooth. Now you're planning your days around dessert. You learn how coffee in Austria isn't just coffee, it's culture. Each cafe has its own soul. In Vienna, you find yourself in grand coffee houses, where marble tables and newspapers on wooden racks feel like time travel. You order a melange, similar to a cappuccino, sit for hours, and no one rushes you. You're not a customer, you're a guest. Then there's meal etiquette. Don't cut your salad with a knife. Don't start eating until everyone is served. And always say Mahlzeit or Guten Appetit. Tipping? It's customary to round up or leave 5 to 10%. You don't leave change on the table. You say the total when you pay. And you quickly learn. Austrians eat seasonally and locally. White asparagus in spring, wild mushrooms in fall, hearty stews in winter. Every menu reflects the moment. Each bite feels intentional, like it belongs to that place and that time. And somewhere between the strudel and the schnitzel, you realize Austria hasn't just fed your body. It's feeding your sense of belonging. You don't need to be fluent in German to enjoy Austria. But as your trip continues, you begin to understand a little effort goes a long way here. It starts with greetings. You step into a bakery and say, "Grüß Gott." The woman behind the counter smiles. You pay for your strudel and say, "Dankeschön." She replies, "Bitte." It's simple, but these small exchanges open doors, not literally, but culturally. Austrians appreciate formality and respect, especially from guests. You don't need perfect grammar, just willingness. You learn a few essentials. Hello, hello, tschüss, bye, Entschuldigung. Excuse me, sorry. Sprechen Sie English? Do you speak English? Ich hätte gern. I would like. Soon you start recognizing words on signs, menus, train announcements. You're not lost anymore. You're learning. Then there's etiquette. Austrians value quiet, cleanliness, and courtesy. On public transport, people speak softly. On escalators, you stand on the right. You don't shout into your phone or block the sidewalk. It's not about rules. It's about consideration. You notice how punctuality matters. If you're meeting someone at 10 o'clock, they expect you at 10 o'clock, not 10:07. You arrive early to trains, tours, even dinners, and it feels respectful. Everything runs smoother. In restaurants, you wait to be seated. You never snap or wave at a server. Just eye contact and a nod will do. When the meal is done, you ask for the check. It won't come until you do. And when you pay, you say the full amount, including tip. No need to leave coins on the table. Even in casual moments, you see how Austrians move through the world, gracefully, quietly, intentionally. You also hear something unexpected. Austrians love dark humor and sarcasm. They might come across as formal at first, but once the ice breaks, they're warm, witty, and full of stories, especially over coffee or a glass of wine. By now, you're not just visiting Austria. You're slipping into its rhythm. One bit, one polite nod, one cultural moment at a time. And with every gesture, every word you try, Austria meets you halfway. Because here, respect is returned, often in ways you don't even see. By now, you've fallen in step with Austria's quiet elegance, the structure, the charm, the coffee. But then, something shifts. You catch a glimpse of a festival parade, hear music spilling through a side street, or walk into a market square transformed by lights and laughter. Suddenly, you realize, Austria knows how to celebrate. You start to uncover a calendar full of traditions, both grand and local. Some are famous, like the Vienna Christmas markets, which light up the city from mid-November through December. Wooden stalls, twinkling fairy lights, warm mugs of punch, and the scent of roasted chestnuts. It feels like stepping into a fairy tale. Cities across Austria have their own markets, each one with a distinct local flavor. You also learn about Easter markets, filled with hand-painted eggs, spring flowers, and folk crafts. In Salzburg or Innsbruck, it's more than shopping. It's a cultural snapshot. Then there's Fasching, Austria's version of Carnival, where towns burst into color and costumes. In cities like Villach or Graz, parades fill the streets, and even the most reserved locals let loose. In summer, Austria glows with open-air music and art festivals. You imagine warm evenings at Salzburg Festival, where Mozart's legacy fills the air, or lakeside concerts in Bregenz, where opera is performed on a floating stage. Even in small villages, you find local brass bands, dancing, and street food. Austria at its most joyful. In autumn, you discover the wine harvest season, especially in regions like Wachau or Styria. Locals gather to celebrate new wine with hearty food, folk music, and a drink called Sturm, the fizzy, cloudy young wine of the season. It's rustic, fun, and best enjoyed outdoors with a view of golden vineyards. And then there are the quiet holidays. All Saints' Day, when candles glow in graveyards, or National Day, October 26th, when flags flutter and museums open for free. These aren't tourist events. They're moments when you see how Austrians connect with their past and each other. You realize, to truly understand Austria, you need to see it in celebration, not just through its architecture, but through its rhythms, rituals, and joy. Because when Austria celebrates, it doesn't shout, it glows. By now you're feeling confident. You're using Denki and Bit with ease, mastering public transport, and blending in at cafes. But just as you're starting to feel like a local, you realize even the best travelers can stumble. So you decide to learn from others' mistakes before making your own. First, don't assume Austria is Germany. Yes, the language is similar, and yes, there are cultural overlaps, but Austria has its own identity, its own humor, and a gentler rhythm. Don't compare the two. Embrace the differences. Second, mind the volume. Austrians speak softly in public, especially on trains, in museums, or cafes. Loud phone calls or rowdy behavior draw disapproving looks. You don't need to whisper, but being mindful earns instant respect. Then there's cash. Yes, cards are accepted in most places, especially in cities, but some restaurants, bakeries, or market stalls are still cash only. Always carry a few euros, just in case. Austria is modern, but it respects its traditions, even in payments. You also learn to avoid rushing meals. Dining here is not about efficiency, it's about experience. Don't expect quick service. Don't flag down the waiter impatiently, and don't leave without asking for the bill. It won't come automatically. Relax. You're not just eating, you're partaking in a ritual. One mistake many tourists make? Skipping the small towns. Vienna and Salzburg are stunning, but Austria's heart lives in its villages, its lakeside hamlets, its mountain farms. You remind yourself, leave space in your itinerary to wander somewhere you've never heard of. Also, respect quiet hours, especially in residential areas. Loud music late at night, especially in your accommodation or on public streets, is frowned upon. Austrians cherish peace. It's part of what makes the country feel so calm, and you get to be part of that peace. And finally, don't try to cram in too much. Austria is best experienced slowly. You might miss a castle or a museum, but you'll gain something deeper by sitting in a park, watching the clouds roll over the Alps, or savoring that extra coffee in a sleepy square. Because in Austria, travel isn't a checklist. It's a state of mind. You didn't expect Austria to stay with you like this. You came for the beauty, and yes, you found it. Towering cathedrals, mirror-like lakes, snow-dusted mountains and cities that looked painted. But what lingers now isn't just what you saw, it's how you felt. You remember walking through quiet streets in the early morning, the scent of fresh bread in the air. You remember standing at a tram stop beside locals, no words exchanged, yet sharing a moment in the stillness. You remember watching the light shift across the Danube as a violinist played nearby, and for a second you forgot you were a visitor. You recall the precision, the trains arriving on time, the clean sidewalks, the order of daily life. And at the same time, the softness, the pace, the people, the understated warmth that came only after a respectful hello and a shared smile. Austria taught you something you didn't know you needed. That stillness can be powerful. That quiet doesn't mean cold. That elegance doesn't have to shout. You look back at the moments you stumbled, mispronounced words, almost forgetting to validate your train ticket, getting politely corrected when you tried to pay with a card at a market stall. And yet, every misstep brought a lesson, and every lesson brought you a little closer to the culture. You carry with you the taste of apple strudel, the sound of church bells echoing through Alpine valleys, the comfort of routine, and the joy of the unexpected. You boarded your flight to Austria with a packed itinerary. You return home with something much less tangible, but infinitely more valuable: a shift in pace, a deeper patience, a newfound appreciation for small moments. Austria didn't just give you photos for your feed, it gave you presence, a quieter way to move through the world, a reminder that beauty doesn't always demand attention. Sometimes it just waits to be noticed. And now, wherever you go, you carry a little of Austria with you, in your footsteps, in your pauses, and in the way you look at the world.